I'm sure married life shouldn't be so difficult. But marriage to Victoria Kingsley was more challenging than I could have imagined. The constant complaints and criticisms seemed endless. Everything I did was wrong. Before we started dating, I had many hobbies, mainly outdoor activities like fishing and hunting, as well as playing on the factory's weekend football team with my coworkers. Over the years, all of this gradually faded away. Victoria would say we couldn't afford it, that we didn't have time, or that she had planned something else for the same day. I lost contact with more and more friends and stopped participating in trips and events. I was so infatuated with Victoria that it took me years to realize what was happening. It was only when I looked back after a few beers that I realized how much I had missed. Why marry someone if they seemed so perfect and then try to change them? Even my friends and family became problems. Not educated enough, drinking too much, or being too loud and crude for Victoria's refined sensibilities. She seemed to take pride in her ability to control our lives and everything that happened in them. There was no end to it. One more work, even harder, make lists of tasks. All this had become a habit for her. When we first started dating, she was caring, attentive, and quite flexible. There were a few hints of her demanding nature, but nothing alarming, and I was fascinated by it. Victoria Kingsley, no. She couldn't give up her maiden name, was a stunning woman from a prominent political family. I am Mike Turner, certainly not stunning and not from that kind of background, but I've achieved decent results in my own right. Steady work as a production supervisor at Steelworks Manufacturing, good income, many friends and hobbies. Life was good, and then I met Vic and everything seemed even better. Tall with long, straight, blonde hair, pale skin, and an elegant East Coast appearance. Victoria commanded attention. Her blue eyes seemed as sharp as her intellect, always observing but with an intense gaze. She was smart, determined, and well aware that she influenced most men. But she knew how to deflect unwanted attention. No one was as shocked as I was when she approached me at that fundraising dinner where my union had purchased a table. I just couldn't understand it. She was clearly out of my league, and I told her so. I'm sick of all these entitled political brats and trust fund babies hitting on me. She said, "You look different, maybe more genuine. I see that you smile and joke with your friends. I like that. Next you'll tell me I'm a nice guy. And that's not exactly the best reason for a date." I replied. She laughed. And she had me with that smile and eye contact. There was no way I could resist her. And she knew it. I literally lost my breath and had to concentrate on breathing. Felt like my heart was about to jump out of my chest. Despite my doubts and the fact that everything seemed too good to be true, I began to think that everything could work out. Victoria was truly pleasant company and incredibly attractive. She worked hard on her appearance, wore designer clothes, used a personal trainer, visited high-end spas, and underwent various beauty treatments. In general, she spared no expense, and it worked. She continued to look even more stunning as time went on. Our engagement was going smoothly until an incident happened with an old family friend and her ex, Bradley Morrison. I caught Victoria meeting him for drinks at an upscale downtown restaurant. They seemed quite close and he was holding her hands across the table. I was about to leave, but then I thought, screw it, and walked over, sitting down in the chair next to them. "Well, this is nice," I said. Victoria's eyes widened and she quickly removed her hands from the table. "It's not what you're thinking." I was explaining to Bradley that we're now engaged and I couldn't continue our previous relationship. She said, "The only thing that confused me was that you were holding hands and giving each other those loving looks. Maybe it's just bad timing and you didn't have a chance to break up with me first." "No, I swear Bradley is just a friend now. I needed to explain everything in person to do everything properly. I love you and want to marry you." I looked at Bradley. "What do you have to say in your defense?" He seemed in no hurry to answer. The self-confident man finally spoke. "Victoria is absolutely right. I asked her out without knowing she was engaged. And I'm glad she thinks highly enough of me to explain everything in person. I don't want to come between you two." The words made sense, but I didn't like something about him. And he continued, "I think I'd better leave you two to sort out your differences. Honestly, I wish you both the best." And Mike, you had a 1 in a million chance. You're a very lucky guy. Victoria looked at me apologetically. I'm sorry, I should have told you I was meeting him. Are you satisfied that I'm telling you the truth? If this isn't what you want, then it's better to sort things out now. You are all I need. Please, you don't have to worry about anything. I'm all yours. Victoria seemed determined to make amends that evening. And I wasn't going to complain. I even embellished my satisfaction a little because I liked the way she was making it. Up to me. There was a week left before the wedding. And I was already getting tired of constantly hearing how lucky I was. Only my mom seemed to think I was a good catch for Victoria too. It wasn't the comments themselves that bothered me so much as the fact that Victoria seemed delighted by them. I was hoping to get at least some kind of protection or support, maybe a hint that she was lucky too or that I was a great guy. But it didn't come. Our conversations became more and more one-sided, with more and more attention paid to her. At first, I chalked it up to wedding stress, though much of this was stressful for me too. My initial proposal for a small celebration with close friends was rejected outright. The wedding went beyond our original plans and budget, but she had to have the perfect dress, the perfect venue, the cake, the ring, and her second cousins had to be added to the guest list, which at that point numbered nearly 270 people. I seemed to get lost in the shuffle. I was often given instructions but usually ignored. I wondered if it would be noticeable if I just didn't show up. And I thought again about why she was marrying me. Despite all my fears, I still showed up and the wedding went just fine, right down to the speeches. Her father's speech was more like a lecture addressed to me about how I should support his princess in the manner she was accustomed to. Congressman Kingsley's wife smiled at the same time, but I didn't. I really didn't expect that kind of welcome to the family speech. Victoria noticed the look on my face and stood next to me. I would like to drink to the fact that our two wonderful families will be united by the love that Mike and I share. She gave her father a sharp look as she sat back down. At least I wasn't the only one who felt the disapproval. The rest of the day passed without incident. After a whirlwind honeymoon in the Hamptons, we settled into married life and 18 months later, our first and, as it turned out, only daughter Emma was born. She was an absolute miracle to me. Victoria struggled with postpartum depression and was determined that she would never go through the trauma of childbirth again. As a result, she declared that Emma would be our only child. Victoria knew that I always wanted to have more children, but I decided not to have that conversation because she wasn't handling motherhood very well. I did everything I could, taking on most of the responsibilities and worries. When Emma turned 8, Victoria wanted to go back to work. Her father was well connected and got her a position starting her own consulting firm for political campaigns and corporate lobbying. It was only later that I learned that the firm's biggest client was Morrison's Strategic Group, owned by Bradley Morrison. She had been working there for over a year when I was invited, along with other spouses and families, to a summer charity gala. This year it had a Western theme with games and fundraising events. Most were dressed accordingly, the most popular costumes being cowboys and Southern belles. To Victoria's disappointment, I avoided participating in the theme. She had bought an elaborate Southern belle outfit with an embroidered dress, wide hat, and silk accessories. There were all sorts of games. Mock shootouts with electronic sensors, log rolling over water, and horseback riding. Competitions. Bradley won the mock gunfight tournament. Only 4 people could ride well enough to compete in the horseback events, using foam lances that were nonetheless quite heavy. They managed to land several hits on the electronic shield sensors and even managed to unseat one rider, although it looked like he would have fallen anyway. To be honest, it was all amusing and fun. Then in front of everyone, Bradley approached Victoria and asked her for a token of favor. She took off her silk scarf and tied it to his lance, receiving applause. After that, flirting began before my eyes. I was unhappy that Victoria was spending so much time with her biggest client. So I confronted her. "What the hell are you up to?" She laughed. "I don't know. The gallant cowboy won my favor." "This isn't funny, Victoria. Come on. Mike, aren't you going to fight for your damsel in distress?" Save her from a charming scoundrel with a questionable reputation. I shouldn't have to do this, and you don't look upset at all. On the contrary, you seem to enjoy it. We're married and I thought we were committed to each other. Calm down. It's just a game, is it? You two seem to enjoy performing for each other, and it makes me wonder what else you might be doing at work. With these words, I left. If I hoped that she would follow me, I was sorely mistaken. I left the venue without the slightest idea of where to go. Eventually, I found a bar called Blue Collar Tavern and thought it would do just fine. I sat at the bar, still angry, drinking my first beer. By the second, I thought my reaction might have been a little over the top. But that was because it was him, Bradley Morrison, always lurking in the background. I tried to think about what I should say to Victoria when I got home. But as it turned out, I didn't need to worry. Victoria wasn't there. It was scary to think where she could be. But all my texts remained unanswered. She returned after midnight but didn't speak to me. I was determined not to ask where she had been. The next day we just mumbled greetings to each other. That evening, Victoria announced that we needed to talk. "Why are you laughing?" she asked when I chuckled. "It's simple," I said. Victoria ignored my response and continued. "No one, including you, has the right to control me. I admit that since we started working together, I have become close. I'm closer to Bradley again. I don't know what I expected, but certainly not this. Did you sleep with him? Don't be so crude. We have a history together. He was always partial to me. So have you already been intimate with him? Stop saying that. I have to be honest and say that the attraction is mutual. Have you already been intimate with him? You are such a child." I looked at her silently, incredulously. "You left me at a charity event. He was there for me when you weren't. Oh my God, you've got to be kidding. If you hadn't run away, this would never have happened." "Oh, I doubt it, Victoria. I think sleeping with him was inevitable. One argument and you jump into his bed and you have the audacity to accuse me of being at fault for your betrayal. I'm not a traitor. Then what is it? Are you leaving me for him? No, of course not. I love you. What then? Is it a one-time mistake? Do you feel guilty? This doesn't mean anything. You only love me. It was just one night. What kind of excuse are you making up? There's no need to act like that. It was a mistake. We argued and I was upset. Forgive me." "Okay, no, it's not okay. You managed to quite successfully create this situation to justify yourself. Why tell me about this now? I wanted to be honest and see if we couldn't work things out. I think it's more like you wanted to throw it in my face. You're right that everything needs to be sorted out. Starting with getting a divorce. You cannot divorce me. You have no evidence of infidelity. No videos, no recordings, no photographs. What makes you think I need them? In this country, when people don't want to be married, they can just get a divorce. This can even be done online without lawyers. There's no need to prove who slept with whom. There's no difference. I don't even know if there are private investigators here. On the other hand, we also don't have alienation of affection lawsuits in this state, which is also a good thing. Otherwise, your precious consulting firm could go under, and then what will your father's political donors do? Not to mention Bradley and his hefty fees. We won't get a divorce because of this episode. Don't even think about it. If you want to see Emma again, my family has more than enough money and connections to destroy you." I looked at the consequences of divorce. It was a nightmare. Even if I won joint custody, I would be left with very little money and would probably end up in a studio apartment. How wrong I was about lawyers. Before I knew it, her father's law firm had already sent us for a consultation. It seems nowadays people cannot make a decision without the help of either a consultant or a lawyer or both. Forget about thinking for yourself. And one more thing. Why should I move out when it was you who had an affair? It wasn't a romance. And I need time to find myself and understand what I want. Find yourself? Really? I thought the problem was that Bradley caught you with your legs spread. This won't help, Mr. Turner. Dr. Patricia Reynolds allowed a slight frown to appear on her usually stoic face. Victoria interjected during a pause in the conversation. That's not the point. I want you, but I don't know if you can survive it. I'm not content with having to apologize for the next 40 years. Did you apologize? I mean, I've heard the word sorry. But not once have you said it convincingly. We'll grow up. I apologize and we have to move on. For me, there was no remorse or recognition of the consequences. You can't see beyond yourself. If you have any regrets, it's only about yourself, about not living up to your own standards, about Victoria Kingsley being a cheater. You don't worry about me except by dictating the terms for us to stay together. You just want to play the victim because I hurt your pride. Maybe this is so. Your cheating definitely hurt my pride and all. But more than that, I can't accept the fact that the one who should care about me more than anyone else actually doesn't care that much. For God's sake, it was just one time, just one night that doesn't mean anything. I was angry with you. You left us for something meaningless. This is even worse. And I don't know if it was just one time. You could have been intimate with him for months. How dare you? If you can't trust me, then we're screwed and we can end it here. Actually, that's a good idea, a very good one. That's the first thing you've said that makes sense. What? Can't you be serious? I got up and headed for the door. What are you doing? Don't you dare leave me. It's still a matter of control for you, isn't it? Well, you don't control me. I'm free to leave this room and I'm free to leave you. Mike, don't you dare leave. I was waiting for a call from Dr. Reynolds after I didn't show up for my next appointment. Mr. Turner, I'm calling about our session today. I won't be coming, Dr. Reynolds. I thought so, Mr. Turner. Mike, strictly off the record, there are some aspects of your wife's personality that you should be careful with. Do you mean something else besides betrayal? She has some narcissistic traits. She will never forgive you for what she considers your faults. Nothing you do will be right. Beware of parental alienation. It's worth reading about. The conversation ended abruptly. I started reading and what I discovered horrified me. The traits described seemed to suit Victoria perfectly, especially her sense of self-worth and superiority, the lack of empathy, the need for attention, criticizing others, and not accepting negative feedback. I realized for the first time that I might lose Emma completely. Mental alienation describes the psychological manipulation of a child against the other parent. Basically, Emma could be brainwashed and isolated from me, and that wasn't an option. The long-term effects on the child from some of the case studies were heartbreaking. Legally and financially, I would lose. None of the ideas of separation and revenge looked viable in the cold light of day. I am not a former soldier, an expert in technology, and have no friends in the criminal underworld. I am an ordinary person who finds himself at the mercy of the court system. Is there any way I can avoid losing everything? Then I had an epiphany. Well, not exactly an epiphany, but a vague idea that I could stay with Victoria and raise Emma together. She's almost 10, so I need another 6 years. I don't need to be in love with Victoria, and in my mind, I don't need to be faithful to her anymore. So maybe it will be an arranged marriage. I'll be much better off financially. I just need to stay cooperative for a few years and eliminate the possibility of losing Emma. After Dr. Reynolds' warning, I was really worried about what might happen if I wasn't around. Victoria begged me to give her one last chance to explain everything, but I refused unless she promised to stop blocking my access to Emma. After moving in with my parents, she refused to do this and insisted that there would be no problems with access. So I reluctantly went to our old house. Let's just sit down and clarify the situation. The truth is, I always needed something more. And if it weren't for Bradley, sooner or later it would have been someone else. Why then did you marry me? It's obvious. I love you, idiot. Thanks to you. I'm happy, safe, and content. I get along with people, have a lot of energy, and love attention. I need you, but I also need something else. And what you want is Bradley. Not necessarily. He's not bad in bed. But I can leave him if that's what's bothering you. I know you don't like him. Of course, if you leave in less than 30 minutes, he will be here. He has always been in love with me. Wow, now you have shown yourself in all your glory. So ruthless. Maybe you deserve each other. This doesn't have to be the end of us. Look at me. You won't find anyone better than me, and I will take care of your every need. But do you want to be intimate with other guys? No need to be so rude. Talking to Bradley reminded me exactly what I was missing. I would like to be more open with you, but I was afraid of losing you. It doesn't have to happen often, and I can be discreet. We were both silent for a long time. The consequences of divorce made me think about alternatives. I can come back if we open our relationship. Victoria didn't expect such a comment and looked shocked. But then a smile appeared on her face. Fun baby. I can be your adventurous wife if you want to explore. You can watch or I can tell you all about it. Maybe it will help you understand. That's not exactly what I meant. I don't want to hear about what you're doing. I would like to swap with other couples. Why on earth would you do that when you have me? Maybe it's my innate sense of justice, but on the other hand, it will give you the extra excitement you seem to crave. She looked down at her body, adjusting her position slightly in her tight skirt. But baby, I don't want to share you. You don't need anything other than this. I knew I needed to appeal to her need to be worshipped. Just imagine all the guys you can enjoy. They will be desperate to be with such a beauty like you. You will be the center of attention, and they will do whatever you want. I realized that she liked this idea even more than her desire to control me, so I continued. With my last chance plan. This is the only way we can stay together, and there are several other conditions. You will need to be tested for STDs before I touch you again, and any encounters will strictly involve the use of protection. No risky activities, and to find other like-minded people, we will join websites. And one more thing, leave Bradley and never meet him again professionally or personally. You're right. I can't stand him. Victoria rejected the idea and made a fuss, at one point even accusing me of trying to. I suppressed my laughter, knowing that she simply did not understand the irony, and asked if she had already submitted her resignation letter. This is not a negotiation, Victoria. It's either this or I'm just leaving. Victoria reluctantly agreed, seeing how adamant I was. But no doubt she thought that sooner or later she would find some way to get around me. She also quit her consulting firm, saying that her father had found her another position, and vowed that she would never see Bradley again. I wasn't naive enough to believe her completely, but it was a concession from which I expected more resistance. I signed up for several couple swapping websites and was amazed at the number of responses. The photo of Victoria in an elegant evening dress attracted attention from men of all ages, more than the more revealing photos in other profiles. We moved on to correspondence with several couples online. The first couple we actually met were Danny and Lisa. The meeting was normal. They were a little younger than us, very fit and attractive. Danny was very interested in Victoria, but I didn't connect with Lisa, and we left the meeting as just an interesting evening, much to Victoria's disappointment. At one point we exchanged brief kisses. Victoria seemed excited when I kissed Lisa, although her kiss with Danny was longer and more passionate. After that, I selected couples based on the wife's attractiveness. I wasn't too worried about what Victoria would get. To be fair, most of them were attractive partners, though not always. Every month or so, we met up with other couples, not always for intimate encounters. As a rule, the men were charming, and their wives were very attractive. The ages ranged from 20 to 40 with different appearances and personalities. I certainly had a lot of fun. Victoria's loyalty no longer mattered to me, and she enjoyed the attention of new men. This continued intermittently for several years. In normal life, Victoria's behavior improved slightly, and her complaints decreased. She knew I would leave if she returned to her old ways, and an uneasy truce developed between us. I spent more and more time with Emma, who often clashed with her mother as a teenager. While I quietly strengthened the bonds we had, I appreciated it all the more because I was well aware of how easily it could all end. It was definitely cheaper to keep her. If we separated, I doubt I could afford to own my own property, and on top of that I would have to do all the shopping, cooking, and cleaning. Moreover, I had had intimate relationships with many attractive women that I would never have approached as a single guy. I would have preferred fidelity and a monogamous relationship, but this seemed like the best way out of the situation. I didn't love Victoria as much as I used to, But our relationship was quite functional. Although I began to miss the deep connection with someone special, Victoria was no longer that person to me. Emma was already 13, and I just needed to last a few more years. Then I started talking to a couple in their early 30s named Sarah and David. The conversation was comfortable and friendly, and we ended up exchanging several photos. The couple was stunning. Sarah was elegant and very pretty with curly red hair, and David looked quite fit. David was friendly and interesting. While Sarah was quite calm, perhaps a little shy, we agreed to meet at a restaurant and see how things were going. Victoria got ready by wearing a tight little black dress that showed off her figure. I was a little surprised by the choice of outfit and assumed it was quite revealing. She insisted that she wanted to look appropriate and that she needed high-heeled shoes since David was very tall. We walked into an upscale bar and saw them in a quiet booth, smiling and greeting each other like old friends, exchanging hugs. David was wearing a suit that contrasted with my jeans and shirt. Using Sarah in person took my breath away. The computer screen had not conveyed all her beauty. She was wearing a midnight blue dress that seemed to shimmer in the ambient lighting, not too revealing with mid-heeled shoes. Her highlighted red hair was a mass of curls and carefully styled, but it looked completely natural. Maybe Victoria was right about the outfit choice. Lots of smiles and confirmation that we were glad to finally meet. We exchanged the first few small talk phrases about how we found this place. We ordered a couple of bottles of wine, and while I tried not to look at Sarah too obviously, David looked at Victoria more openly. The conversation continued. Everyone admitted that they had hardly thought about anything else all week. I can't believe we got along so well. It's more relaxed than I thought. It feels like we've been friends for a long time, I remarked. The others agreed with my observation. I saw the way Victoria looked at David. If anyone didn't appreciate the state of things, she seemed fascinated by him. And it wasn't long before she went into full flirting mode. Sarah bit her lip. It was a nervous gesture, but it drew my attention to her rather full lips. Between the bar and the restaurant, there was a dance floor with music playing, and I asked Sarah if she wanted to dance. She looked at David, who nodded in agreement. At the same time, he stood up and extended his hand to Victoria. She smiled and took it without even looking in my direction. I remember very well our first touch when Sarah took my hand and I looked into her eyes. My heart jumped slightly, as did other parts of me. I put my other hand around her waist. "Everything okay, Sarah?" I said. She just smiled and nodded in response. As we began to move slowly to the music, I saw that she was nervous, so I continued chatting. "By the way, I like your dress. It's very elegant." "Thank you," she said. "I hoped you would like it." Took me forever to choose. I was aiming for attractive but not inappropriate. "Well, I would say that you succeeded. You look elegant and stylish," I replied. Sarah surprised me by explaining that this was the first time they had met like this. Their interest was sparked by meeting old college friends, drinking a lot, which led to some flirting. But they didn't follow through. David wanted to explore and experiment and convince Sarah to give it a try. I felt there was more to it, but I didn't want to pry too much too soon. "Would you mind if I held you closer, Sarah?" I asked. "No, and you can call me Sarah. Everyone else does," she replied. "Okay, why don't you put your hands on my shoulders?" When she did this, I ran my hands along her petite waist. "What do you think?" I asked. "It's nice, mate. I like being around you," she said, biting her lip again. "Just try to relax, Sarah. I'm not going to do anything that will make you uncomfortable. Tell me if I do and we'll work it out." "Thank you. It means a lot. I want to trust you, and this is a great way to start something I hope is special," she said. I held her closer and forgot about Victoria and David for a while. Lost in the moment. I wanted to kiss her but resisted the urge. It felt too early, and I hoped it would be something to look forward to. He looked at each other and saw David and Victoria kissing. His arms also positioned a little lower. I was amazed at how little I cared. I never felt the same after her cheating, and even if we could get over it, her attitude made that impossible. Sarah looked up at me. "How do you feel seeing them kiss?" she asked. I expected to feel jealous, but no. "I think it's because you're in my arms," I replied. Sarah smiled back. "You're too sweet." This is probably what worried me the most all week. I never doubted that I liked you, but I thought that jealousy could become insurmountable. But it hasn't. It's like a regular date, which is what I like, but with an extra twist of excitement. More than just exciting for me. It's the same. I don't mind because we're together. I pulled her a little closer to me, enjoying the closeness of her body and letting my hands slide to her lower back, trying to avoid being inappropriate while feeling her move against me as we continue to slowly dance. David and Victoria moved toward us. Are you guys okay? David asked. Yes, everything is fine. You guys are a great couple, I replied. I felt proud when David said that. For some reason, I really liked that we were called a couple. Sarah turned to me. I can't agree more. I think so too. She said. We sat back in the booth while David and Victoria continued dancing. I leaned over to chat with her over the music. Our face is naturally close. She leaned over and kissed me tenderly on the lips. Her lips were so soft and her perfume so intoxicating. The feeling was electric. Wow, this is so unusual. Thank you. I'm serious. There's no rush. We can move at the pace that suits you. We don't have to follow them. I know. We'll just do our own thing. I said. We looked at each other and saw Victoria looking at us and David saying something. Sarah looked at him and blushed, pressing her face to my chest. I heard muffled. Looks like they saw everything. I said, probably yes. We were a little obvious. Do you feel awkward because of this? Sarah asked. And you, I replied, not one bit, and I don't want to let you go. She said. David and Victoria joined us. And we continued talking about friends, family, travel, and work. Some flew by confirming that we had a lot in common and a real connection. David interrupted. Hey, would you guys like to have a nightcap with us? Or can we do it another time if it seems too hasty? Victoria looked excited and I looked at Sarah, who nodded, biting her lip again. How about we come back and see how it goes? No promises. She said yes, quite fair. Many of us can stop at any time. Victoria added with a laugh. Why don't we swap partners for the duration of the trip so that no one gets lost? David suggested. Sure, sounds like a good plan. I said. I offered Sarah my hand. She took it and I led her out of the bar. My stomach shaking with excitement and some anxiety. Victoria and David followed holding hands. I noticed that the waitress was looking at us with raised eyebrows and a smile. I opened the car door for Sarah, feeling strange but excited as I took the opportunity to help her in. Her dress rode up slightly on her hips and I noticed her very slender legs. I looked back and saw David's hand on Victoria's lower back as he walked her to the car. I got into the car and, unable to resist, leaned over to kiss her, wondering what I would get, her cheek or her lips. She turned and kissed me tenderly on the lips. We started the engine and drove off, seeing that David had followed us. Are you happy with this evening, Sarah? I asked. Yes, everything was wonderful. More comfortable than I expected. But that doesn't mean I'm still not nervous, she replied. I would say that you shouldn't be nervous, but I'm nervous myself. You're very attractive. And I like your company. Just remember that everything is under your control. I reassured her. She giggled and reached out to squeeze my hand. I like that. Thank you, you make everything simpler. I had so many doubts. She said. I think David and Victoria hit it off too. I commented. After a short drive, we arrived and walked into their home. I heard some wine at the breakfast bar and then settled into the living room. I was glad that Sarah decided to sit next to me. We talked for a bit and I kept glancing at Sarah. She really had an amazing figure. When I looked back, David's hand was on Victoria's thigh and he moved in for a kiss. I decided to do the same with Sarah and started kissing her. It didn't take long before David led Victoria upstairs. He'd eat us for breakfast at 9 in the morning. Not just a night, but a sleepover. I suggested. I was more than happy with the prospect of spending the night with Sarah. Sarah also nodded in agreement. I began to kiss her more and more often, unable to stop, and then she began to have serious jitters. You are of course a good guy. But I'm not sure I can do this. She confessed. It's okay, Sarah. You should be absolutely comfortable with what we're doing and you should be sure that this is exactly what you want, I replied. Then we heard the unmistakable sounds from upstairs and knew what it meant. With these words, Sarah took a deep breath, stood up, offered her hand, and led me upstairs. As we walked past one of the bedrooms, I heard my wife's voice. Sarah led me into the bedroom, which was clearly the master bedroom. She gracefully unzipped the back of her dress and let it fall. I was mesmerized. In black heels, elegant undergarments, she looked like a vision. Her skin was so smooth and perfectly porcelain. I remembered to close my mouth so that the staring would not be so noticeable. "So, you like what you see?" she teased. "I more than like it. You are stunning," I replied. "Well, it looks like I got your attention. Now it's your turn," she said. I tried to be cool and confident, but I felt rushed and awkward. And it took me no more than a few seconds to undress. Sarah looked me up and down, and I felt myself blush. "That's very nice. Looks like I'll get a good deal," she joked. I was delighted by this remark and went up to her to kiss her. The shy housewife turned out to be passionate, and I wanted more and more. Breakfast turned into casual conversation after the ice was broken. We exchanged opinions without going into too much detail. It looked like Victoria and David were having a good time too. And we agreed to meet again in 6 months. I continued to meet with David and Sarah, and I thoroughly enjoyed each meeting. Victoria started asking if I had feelings for Sarah. I denied it, saying it was just a beneficial arrangement. In the end, David said they wouldn't date us anymore because he thought Sarah and I were too close. I didn't argue, admitting to myself that I had fallen in love and that, if possible, I would switch places with Victoria in a heartbeat. But unfortunately, that's where it all ended. Our months had passed since our last meeting when Victoria, out of the blue, said that David and Sarah had invited us to a party. Apparently, it was a party thrown by a couple they met online. They weren't sure about it and wanted to have friends there in case it got too crowded. We had agreed that we would only swap with other couples, no group activities or singles. But I wanted to see Sarah again and I agreed to go. I explained that Victoria was very interested in the idea, adding that she was curious about what such parties entailed and that they could open up new opportunities. I was pleasantly surprised when we entered the venue, which was a large and secluded private. The party was a casual affair with drinks and a meet and greet. The hosts introduced us to some of the regulars. They all seemed like nice people, but there was no sign of David or Sarah. Victoria started hanging out with a guy named Jeff. He was young and handsome and she seemed to like him. They went into the bar area and I chatted with the hosts and was introduced to another couple. 20 or 30 minutes had passed when Victoria returned and said she was going upstairs to get to know Jeff better. Wait a second, this is not part of our agreement. Remember, he's single and we only exchange with couples. I reminded her. But it's a party, she said. Hell no, we still stick to our boundaries. I insisted. I could see she was annoyed and wondered if she couldn't just go anyway. But then I saw her shake her head slightly at her potential partner across the room. By the time David and Sarah arrived, she had calmed down a little. I noticed that Sarah was wearing a dress that was very revealing for her, short and low-cut. She looked impressive, but of course, she did not feel comfortable. David was as gregarious as ever. But Sarah looked depressed and awkward and I decided that this was not going to be a party I would enjoy. It wasn't long before David led Victoria toward the bar again, leaving Sarah and me. We chatted, but she seemed preoccupied and the conversation was strained, lacking the warmth of our previous meetings. Would you like to leave? Just go for a ride without any obligations? Maybe get some fresh air, I suggested. She looked so relieved and then burst into tears. I tried to calm her down, asking what happened. David wants me to try a special kind of encounter, with multiple guys. I don't want this, but David is very insistent and he insisted that we come to the party. I only agreed when David said you would be here. I knew that you wouldn't want me to do anything that made me uncomfortable. Wait, this doesn't make sense. Why would David invite me knowing that I would refuse? I realized, puzzled. It dawned on us both at the same time. Sarah spoke first. Maybe he had something planned for Victoria. They were texting to coordinate. I said, we went looking for them, but they weren't in the bar area. I turned to Sarah, shaking my head. Looking at my watch, I realized that at least 45 minutes had passed since they left together. I quickly ran up the stairs and was already moving along the corridor when Victoria came. Staggering out of a bedroom door, trying to straighten her dress, and we almost collided. The door was open and I saw David and Jeff inside. At least she had the decency to look embarrassed. I stared at her in rage. "Is this my fault too, Victoria?" I demanded. "This is my body, and I will do whatever I want with it. Don't be a prude, but I'm leaving," she retorted. I turned on my heels, passed Sarah on the stairs, and headed toward the exit. I heard the click of heels behind me as I walked down the stairs and across the tiled hallway. I turned to tell Victoria exactly where she could go. But I saw Sarah looking back at me. She was in a panic, her eyes wide. "Can I go with you?" she asked. I looked up at the landing and saw a third man heading into Victoria's room with the other two. I nodded to Sarah and turned to leave. The trip was calm. We talked a little about what we were going to do and came to the conclusion that both David and Victoria were narcissistic. In my case, I thought that Victoria would always try to win and would not accept any balance in our relationship. Sarah's assessment was more blunt. "David is just a selfish jerk," she said. This made me laugh. Exactly the level of personal analysis that I could understand and for which I did not need a consultant. "Can I take you home? I'm not very fond of company right now," I said. "Only if everything is fine with you alone and if you take me to my sister's. I don't want to see David anytime soon," she requested. I left her, promising to stay in touch and return to the house alone, acutely aware of the silence and darkness. Victoria returned home the next day. I didn't know if she would try to argue or apologize. "Don't even bother, Victoria. It's all over between us," I declared. "Why? It's just one night. We've done it with dozens of people. What's the difference? I've had enough. 3 guys all night long. You seem to be saying that you can always get more. By the way, you were right about this. You were attractive to many men. You won. Congratulations," she replied, seemingly unable to contain her smile. "Sorry. I was upset because you ruined my fun with Jeff." "Nonsense. You and David arranged everything. Used Sarah to distract me while you both got what you wanted. It's always the same with you. You act like a spoiled child. And it is never enough. You need to go to the clinic and get checked. I won't touch you again," I responded firmly. Victoria didn't take my leaving very well. She started harassing me and didn't allow me to see Emma. At one point, she tried to force her way into my parents' house where I was staying. Ranting about how I was treating her badly, I tried to get her to leave without using force. Fortunately, my mother showed no restraint. She pushed her out and literally threw her off the property. "You need help, Victoria. I'm not sure you're mentally stable," my mother said. This remark provoked another barrage of insults from Victoria. I gave Victoria money for Emma, but she referred me to the child support agency. I couldn't help but laugh when they told me I had to pay her less than she expected. And she got so angry that she threatened the caseworker and got a police warning. I went to pick up Emma, but Victoria said she was with her friends. I was stunned to see Bradley Morrison emerge from the living room. Cool as a cucumber. "What the hell?" I exclaimed. "Like I said, if you leave me, Bradley will be here, and here he is. Soon he will take me upstairs again," Victoria stated matter-of-factly. I turned to Bradley, who had a smug look on his face. I was definitely going to beat the crap out of him. And then I remembered Dr. Reynolds' warning from many years ago. Maybe it was a setup, a trap. Victoria hated losing at anything, and if I got arrested for assault, Victoria would keep Emma and everything else. Surely she wouldn't go that far, would she? Victoria continued. "I'm sure Bradley will be a wonderful father for Emma. He will be only too happy to adopt her." Finally, I noticed that her phone, partially hidden on the shelf, was undoubtedly recording. I laughed almost hysterically. "Nice try, Victoria. But I won't touch a single hair on his privileged little head. You were something special, and you both truly deserve each other. By the way, does Bradley know that you were intimate with several guys at the same time? And without protection?" Bradley almost choked as I left. I casually added, better sign up for the health clinic. Mate, you don't want anything bothering you. While Victoria was having her evening, I received a number of offensive messages and videos. From her. Her comments were very instructive. Look what you threw away that you could have enjoyed. Never mind. I have a real man. And he is much better and bigger than you. I thought it was strange that she would waste time texting when she was supposedly doing so well, and I didn't care anymore as long as Emma was safe. If you give me Emma, you will have more time to have fun with anyone. Although I heard that Bradley moved out, so you have some space to fill, so to speak. At this point, she hung up. No doubt amazed that 2 men had already rejected her. The divorce was a nightmare. It dragged on longer and longer. She kept resisting and making up all sorts of nonsense about me having affairs and being abusive. She had no evidence. And some of her claims were so outlandish that the family court social workers and lawyers began to realize what she was all about. Anyone who disagreed with her received a barrage of insults. I realized that the Victoria I lived with was just a simplified version of her. Even Victoria's parents began to worry about their princess's erratic behavior, but it was also my fault because I was the one who abandoned her. Now at 14 years old, Emma had a choice, and the family court listened to her wishes. She wanted to stay with me. I continued to handle most of my parenting responsibilities without missing a single event, class, or parent-teacher meeting, and turned into a teen taxi service. Victoria perceived this choice as a betrayal. After all, how could Emma not choose her? At the custody hearing, she lost her temper when my lawyer asked for a psychological evaluation of Victoria to ensure Emma's safety. I thought Victoria was going to explode. She started cursing right in the middle of the trial and completely lost her composure. She called me stupid just like my lawyer. Honestly, she might be right, but he was on my side. She was again found in contempt of court when she continued to cause problems with my access to Emma. I kept a journal and had her message chain as proof. The judge warned her that one more such incident and she would be taken into custody. At the last hearing, she lost her temper again when the judge confirmed joint custody and called him a senile fool, for which she was prosecuted and fined. Over time, I spent more and more time with Emma. Victoria seemed to have lost interest in parenting and Emma's activities. Although I didn't observe any of that problematic behavior with Emma that others described. All I had to do was pay off another 18 months of the mortgage, and then we could sell the house or Victoria would have to buy out my share. Another thing I did was save small amounts of money over the years, and that helped it. The day after receiving confirmation of the divorce, my doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw a red-haired vision. Hello, I guess you're not interested in dating a recently divorced and reformed woman who wants only one thing: to settle down with the right and truly monogamous man. She said, I think we have someone who fits that description if you'd like to come in. The truth was that I stayed in touch with Sarah, and we supported each other through our divorces. David seemed to be on the same path as Victoria, and like Victoria, he periodically asked for forgiveness and then returned to his previous behavior. I didn't see much of Victoria after that, only making a brief appearance at Emma's 16th birthday. I thought that after such a long separation, we could have a reasonable conversation. I would consider coming back to you, Mike, if you begged. You know that I am the best thing you ever had. And don't even try to say that you don't miss me. I laughed. You're right, Victoria. It would be completely pointless to tell you otherwise. The next time I saw her was at the train station when we saw Emma off to college. I was there with Sarah. As the train pulled out, I heard Victoria say to her, I could take him away from you if I really wanted to. But I like all the other men too much, and his pride can't handle it. Sarah smiled sweetly. Oh, darling, you really are very bitter and completely out of touch with reality. Aren't you? Sarah turned and took my hand. And we walked away from the scene. For all the holidays, Emma returned to me and Sarah. Thank you for taking the time to read this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe, like and share in the comments. Remember, history is a witness to the past, a light of truth, a living memory, a teacher of life, a messenger of antiquity, and see you soon.